Hello, I'm Greg, and this is my review of Concept. This is a game that's designed by Alain Rivolette and Gaëtan Bijonat. I am terribly sorry for just butchering both of your names. I should be ashamed of myself. It was designed by Repos Production, and it is a game for 4 to 12 players, and let's get right to it. So this is a typical setup for the game Concept. It does come with a rule book that's pretty thin. The rule book is really just 2 pages of rules, but really you don't need to follow the rules too closely because this game is not a heavy theme game or really that intensive rules. The basic rules for the game are that you will play as 2 players per team, and then the other players on the table try to guess what your concept is, and I'll get to a little more details in that in a second. But there's lots of variants that I've seen that people can play. The way my group liked to play was that it was more like one person reads the card, lays out the concept, and everyone else tries to guess. And there's a timer, and the timer would be like, let's say 2 minutes long or 3 minutes long, and then every time they get the answer wrong, you lose points. Every time you get an answer correct, you gain points, and the idea is to get to a total amount of points. So like you might start with 30 points, and you're trying to get to 25 points. Tabletop did a really good example of this game where they played something similar to that style, and it looked like a lot of fun, which is why we tried it. In the official rules, however, you play with 2 players trying to prove the concept. So they would then have everyone else around the table guess, and whoever guessed correctly gets 2 victory points, and then each player on the team got 1 victory point. Then if no one's guessing for a while, you bring in a 3rd player who tries to help with the concept. If it fails then it's scrapped and you move on to the next concept, which is fine. It's a fun version of the game. I like the fact that this game is open enough that you can make up your own scoring rules and whatnot, because really the fun factor of this game is not points, it's trying to guess the concepts. Will Wheat in his review said that nobody likes charades because there's so many different versions of it. I disagree. I think there's different versions of charades because people do like the game and they want to have a little more diversity to that. But like he said, this game is great. I really enjoyed this game a lot. And so basically the way the game works is one person or 2, depending on which version you play, draws a card. The person is trying to come up with a concept. And the card has 3 categories. It has an easy, hard, and challenging category, as you can see. So blue, red, and gray, respectively. So like with this card, for example, in the easy column, it has Monopoly, Salad, School. In the challenging or hard part, it has Birds, Rocky, and Johnny Cash. And then finally, in the difficult section, it has Nightfall, Flex One's Muscle, and Sleep Like a Baby. Honestly, some of the ones in the easy category I found to be extremely hard to do, and some of them in the harder categories were a lot easier. And then some of them were like, how in God's name would we do this? This seems impossible. So part of the fun is choosing which one you think your group will get correct. The important thing about this game is that, I should say, the easiest part of the game is to really play with a group of people that you know well, because then you guys can come up with cool ideas. Like, hey, over here, like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that must be this. Versus if you're playing with complete strangers, this game will be a lot more difficult because you may not know them as well, and what movies they've seen, what references they know. So it does make it more challenging. But with that said, I would have drawn, let's say, this card. At this point, let's say I wanted to go for a little bit more difficult one, so I might go with the birds, for example, which I don't think would be that hard, but sure. So the general concept here, you would look at this board, has a bunch of different icons on it. I know it's a little hard to see all of them, but each player gets a reference sheet, and the reference sheet here contains all of the icons that are on the board. So as you can see from here to the back. Yeah, and then it gives you kind of a rough estimate of what it thinks each concept means. So like, for example, there's a box up here with a question mark. According to the reference sheet, it's an object or a thing or package. You have like here, which is a bunch of animals together. So this is like a wildlife or animals versus flora, nature, plants. So I would heavily keep in mind that these are suggestions and not like concrete, because, for example, you might put down your concept on music, but you're really referring to a singer, not necessarily a song, a music, or a note, but it's music related. So, excuse me. So that's just something to keep in mind. And each player will get one of these reference sheets, or each team of players, depending on how many players you're playing with. But there are a total of 4 reference sheets, it seems, that come with the game. So you give that out as much as possible to the people that are guessing. Obviously, the person who needs it. Also, one to the person who's deciding so that they can go with the reference. But let's say it was birds. So here I might put music to try to tell my group, hey, this is a musical group. So I'll put on music, and then up here, which is hard to see, there's a group icon, which is a bunch of people. So I might put like a musical group. The green question mark is this is the main concept, and then the green cube is like this is part of the main concept, is that it's a musical group. Now people generally will start going, oh, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, etc., etc., and trying to guess as quickly as possible. But then you might be like, okay, sub-concept, which means like I'm going to try to help you guys guess a little bit better. Now keep in mind, sub-concept doesn't necessarily mean like, okay, this is an additional part of the word. This is more like, here's another example. So for example, I might say that so I might put this on the animals. So it's a musical group, and the sub-concept is that the group has an animal name, or is an animal, or whatever. Like, depending on the group, they might get confused. They might get it. Oh, yeah, okay, it's an animal name. And they start listing off animal names. At this point, you might say it's an animal that is right down here next to the airplane and helicopter to indicate it's a flying animal. So then people have to really think, okay, well, maybe it's blah, blah, blah. Oh, the birds. Oh, birds, okay. And if they get it right, you're like, yes, that's it. It's the birds. Congrats. All right, woo. And then people get points, and you move on to the next game. If they're still not getting it, you can try to narrow it down even more. So, for example, you might say, like, put in the red one on this icon here, which means like for old, ancient, historical. But in this case, you're just saying it's an older band. It's a kind of like, you know, they've been around for a while. You might alternately put over here, it's a fictional band. Hey, now it's like, well, you know, because you might have something that's not a real band. But in the case of the birds, they were a real band, so you put over here, and then finally, hopefully, somebody guesses the birds. And if they guess it, yay, you get points. So if you're playing the team version, each member on the team gets one of these light bulbs, and they get to put that towards their score, and the person who guessed it correctly gets 2, and it's like, hey, congratulations. And at the end of the game, whenever it's deemed the end, people get the most points. Have the most points, sorry, wins the game. In the basic rules here, basically it says that it doesn't actually have a time limit of how many rounds you play, so really it's up to the group. And that's pretty much it. That's the basics of this game. The real challenge of this game is trying to figure out what concept somebody's coming up with. But I think the bigger challenge is trying to explain the concepts without being able to say any words. I can say to the players, yes, yes, oh, no, 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 until I try to indicate whether they're on the right track or not. And I can start repeatedly pointing to things, or if I have like a camera with, let's say, death and combat, and people are completely off the wrong track, I can start removing things. Like, no, no, it doesn't involve death, or no, it's not involving combat, or whatever, to try to get them back on the right track. We played a few rounds of this game, and we had a blast. I mean, we were laughing hysterically. We were all just really having a lot of fun with the mechanics. And as you can see here, get a little closer look at my board, there are a lot of icons on this board. So there's lots and lots and lots of ways that you can interpret different concepts. And then once you discard the card, and then you draw a new card, and the next player goes. That's it. That's pretty much how this game works. It's a very simple, very light party. I don't want to say party game because it's kind of a dirty word with some of my gaming group members, but it's a very fun, abstract game. So let's go to the conclusion. Okay, so I gave Concept a solid 8 out of 10. Personally, I love thematic games. I love playing really complicated and really fun board games in general. But I do see a need and a niche for these type of games, and this is definitely one of my favorite ones. I wouldn't necessarily pull this out all the time, but if I was at a group setting and people were like, "Hey, let's go play that game Concept," I'd definitely be like, "Yes, let's play it." That's a game that's super fun. I love that game. There are other party games out there that I prefer. Yes. Are there other games that are like this that are abstract games slash filler game? Not really filler games, but like you can play a large group of people. Yes. But with that said, the game is solid. It's really fun trying to really figure out some of these concepts. I mean, we had things like the Hunger Games, which someone did really well. It was really fun. And then like, you know, some of these like how would you come up with like Too Tired to Think Straight or Smoke Like a Chimney? You know, like a lot of these things, like the icing on the cake, strike when the iron's hot, the iron fist and the velvet glove. So a lot of these things require you to know some historical sayings and whatnot, and not only for the person who's come up with the concept, but the people who's trying to guess. Because if people have never heard of, like for example, on tabletop. The ones that Will Wheaton was playing with had never heard of "Enjoy the Silence" by Depeche Mode. So he was trying to get them to guess that, and they had no clue what he was talking about. So yeah, there is a level of difficulty based on the knowledge of the players, but it's also really fun kind of like trying to guess. And then when someone does guess, there's lots of high-fiving, there's lots of laughter. So it's a blast. I mean, this is like really a solid, fun, abstract party game, party-ish game. For those of you that don't like the word party games, I definitely recommend you check it out. If you like games that you can play with a large group of people in a short amount of time and just have a real fun time playing it, absolutely recommend this game. There's so many different variations that you can do with the rules of how to get points, how to play the game, that there's really a lot of longevity to this game, and I really hope there's more expansions come out. I would have given this probably a 9 if there was a little bit more icons on the board. I know there's a lot already, but like things like criminals or jail or things like that, which would have been nice to have like an additional board maybe for an expansion with more icons. They give you more concepts that you can approach. But overall, really fun. 8 out of 10. Highly recommend. If you like these type of games, check it out. If you like more thematic games, obviously this is not the right game for you. So yeah, so thank you. I hope you enjoyed the review. Hi. So, is there room on your shelf for this game? I would say yes. There's definitely room on your shelf. It doesn't matter how many party games you have, how many abstract games you have, or how many games of this genre you have. This game is very unique. I haven't seen anything else like it, to be honest. Yes, there's charades, there's Pictionary, there's various games where you're trying to get people to guess an object. So yes, the basic mechanics-wise does exist. There's also Taboo, where you're trying to get people to guess a word with restrictions. So there are lots of variants. But visually trying to get people to guess a concept, I've never seen done quite this way before. I love the fact that it's like abstract enough that you can put down multiple concepts for different things and sub-concepts down, and you're trying to like get people to guess. Unlike Pictionary, it requires you to draw and like try to be like, what a shitty drawing, it's Santa Claus or whatever. This doesn't require any physical art skills. It doesn't require any knowledge of a subject other than knowing what it is. So like for example, in Taboo, if someone's trying to guess Arnold Schwarzenegger, you have to know all the things that Arnold Schwarzenegger's movies that he's made, that he was the governor of California, because the list of Taboo is like maybe like 5 of his movies. So if you know other ones, it gets really easy, right? Like so if it says like you can't say any of his movies before 2000, you might be like, oh, Escape Plan, and be like, oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Sabotage, or The Last Stand, and they're like, oh, of course Arnold, governor of California, oh, Arnold, right? So it's like it becomes really easy because people just know based on that stuff. But with this game, it doesn't matter. If you know all of Arnold's films, how are you going to tell the title of The Terminator, for example, by just putting down concepts? And that's where the challenge comes in. And that's what makes this game unique. That's what makes this game fun. I wish there was a little bit more reference sheets, maybe with more options on the concepts, or less. It's really hard because sometimes it can be distracting as well. Like, for example, there was one that was like recreational sports and activity icon or whatever. Like someone might misinterpret that, and they might just go by literally what's on this sheet, which is can be very difficult, because if you do like history or reality, and you put an icon there, people are just assuming, oh, it's ancient, oh, it's got to be a history thing, or like put on the old person, which is supposed to be an adult child, ancient or past. Like it can be a little bit distracting as well. So I mean, that's why I'm a little hit or miss on this reference sheet. But still, the reference sheet is great to have in general. Yeah, overall, I would definitely say this belongs on your shelf. Even if you have like other games like Pictionary, where you have to try to get someone to guess based on the card, absolutely, go out, buy this game. You're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy it. If you hate abstract games, or you hate these type of party-esque games, then no, you're not going to enjoy this game. There's no room on your shelf for it, and I don't know why you're watching this review, to be honest. You're probably like that game looks like crap. So fair enough, it's not for everybody. Let's be honest. But if like one of my group members didn't like party games, but he liked this game a lot. He thought it was a lot of fun. So I would say if you have a group of 4 to 12 people that want to play a fun, quick, entertaining game, this game will probably be brought out more often than other games. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review as much as I enjoyed giving it, and look forward to seeing more. All right, bye-bye.